All right, all right. Hey, music producers and sound designers, welcome back to another sound design stream. So, today we're going to be looking at designing a cinematic pad. So, we're going to open up our version of Reaktor as a plugin today, and we're going to make a cinematic pad. I'm going to look for it in my VSTs. We're going to grab a version of Reaktor as a plugin. Going to open that up. When you open that up, you're going to see three different sections. One's going to be the play section, one is going to be the patch section, and one is going to be the build section. The play section, we're going to play instruments that are already pre-built in Reaktor. Our sound design tool. Patch, you patch together modular racks, and build, they're going to build from scratch synthesis and sound design tools. They're going to help us to carve out the sound we want. So we're going to go into build, and we're going to build it out. So today we're going to be building out a cinematic pad. So when you think of cinematic pad, we're thinking of having maybe a dual oscillator, filter, envelopes, LFOs, reverb and delay, and maybe a VCA. So I'm going to grab the basic components of the build in no particular order. I'm just grabbing them right now. So I'm going to need this. I'm going to need also two oscillators. I'm going to pick those a little bit last. So I'm going to choose two oscillators, maybe FM oscillators. Let's go into our oscillator section. Maybe I'll choose a different filter than my normal filter that I use. Choose a comb filter. And let's see. So let's choose a Monarch and maybe a dual oscillator. So I'm going to choose those two oscillators. I'm going to grab my note in to get MIDI information from my keyboard, and I'm going to use it. So let's go into the oscillator section. I'm going to grab a note in. So utility, going to need a note in. Then I'm going to connect the pitch. We need to mix these together, these sources. So I'm going to grab a mix to blend them together into one filter. So they're both going to be connected to pitch. And I'm going to send this out. So let's just make sure they're working as intended. Before I connect that LFO, I'm just going to turn the volume up for each oscillator. And I'm going to turn the VCA up. So let's see. I'm going to add some modulation depth to the VCA. And we're going to test for sound. You are getting a signal, but no sound. So that's because we didn't connect our outputs. So if we connect those, we should get a sound, which we do. So that's great. We've connected our first oscillator. It's giving us raw waveforms right now. That's why we're hearing the raw sound of each oscillator, or each oscillator. I'm going to actually just test the filter that's working. Okay. And I'm going to connect the LFO to probably the dual oscillator duality. So I hear a faint buzz, volume's up, Now the volume's down to 0. I'm going to actually add a modulation source to this duality oscillator. And I want it to affect actually the FM. So maybe not. Let's do this manually. So now I'm going to tweak that first monarch. Okay, I'm going to add some delay to this sound and some reverb, and we're going to have a finished sound that we can use. So it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm just going to add some reverb. I think it needs that for some finishing touches to the sound. Some reverb and delay. Let's bring in delay. Connect that. And I'm not liking the reverb so much. I think the delay will be better. So let me just slow down that attack. Let's go ahead and save this patch as it is so I don't lose my sound. Gonna organize my panel real quickly, just so things are in order and they make sense to the user, not just myself or anyone who opens the patch. Just gonna bring the modules into order of that they need to be used. So we usually put our oscillators first after our note in. So I'm gonna bring in the note in. Our oscillators go second. After that, then followed by our filter. Our LFO usually goes right after the oscillator, somewhere there, which depending on which one is controlling. Envelopes go, so we're going to name this envelope. It is the amp envelope. Our amp ADSR or amp ADSR. It's going to go just before the amp. So I'm going to bring it over and bring it there. And this goes after the mix knob goes after the two oscillators because we're blending them together. And this LFO is controlling the first, the duality. Let's see. Yeah, it's controlling the duality. It's for that. And that looks pretty good to me. And reverb and delay. We probably don't need the reverb module, so I'm going to remove it or delete it just for now, and then we can clean up our panel so that things are in a nice order. So yeah, that's how it should look, something like that. So your things look pretty organized, and you can see where your signal flow is going. So that's how I would do it. So there is your completed sound. Detune it slightly, get some width, and get some volume. Just experiment with some sounds and how they move. You can change the pitch a little bit. And there we have it. We have a finished sound, building something that's cinematic, and basically creating that from scratch. We used a few oscillators, a filter, a VCA, and some effects, and that's how we built this sound. So feel free to experiment and try this out on your own, and I will see you in the next live stream. And peace out for now.